Welcome to Safe and Sound, sponsored by White Mountain Fire and Life Safety. Today on the show we have Allison Moseley from Pinetop Fire District and Ian Schalow with Timber Mesa Fire and Medical District. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
So you guys are actually our training division and work in the training department and helping making sure that all of our firefighters are up to date on all their trainings, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So how do you guys like your job?
Love it.
Love
Yeah,
it.
in fact,
It's a great job.
In fact, today we were able to do some kind of like an experiment, you might say, with what not to do with deep fat turkey fryers.
Right.
So, so let's get into that a little bit because we're coming into the season where, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, the holidays, and you know, it's kind of a new thing. It's been going on for several years now, but we really want to talk about kind of some of the do's and don'ts that are associated with a deep fat fryer. So,
Okay. Well, I think first of all, it's where you're placing the fryer is important. So we want to make sure that we're not putting it on a wood deck or too close to the trees or have a bunch of leaves or something around it. You want it to be on a nice flat surface. And then when you're when you're getting ready to cook it, you want to make sure that it's been thawed completely and that it's not wet or too frozen still, because that'll cause what we had today.
right?
And then we don't have turnouts on, so that's not great for us, right? You want to make sure that when you're putting the turkey in that you shut your burner off, put it in and then turn your burner back on, just so that you have that off just in case something happens like happened today where it overflows. You won't have that fire, that flame already there. And there's some other options that you could use besides even using the fryer. They have a infrared
Oh, nice.
oilless fryer. So that's
Okay.
even a better option, because then you don't have to worry about the mess or the expense of it or anything like that. It's just sears that turkey,
So
but there's no actual oil.
do you get the same kind of effect with that
You do
device
actually,
as?
yeah.
Okay. So in fact, when we were doing the experiment, we actually put a pallet down and put the burner on top of a pallet to try to simulate being on a wooden deck. I noticed that it caught on fire a couple of times before we even got to the
Right.
point of.
It wasn't even boiling yet. It was actually already on fire.
Right. So it's like you said, you know, that making sure it's not on some kind of combustible surface. It needed so types of non-combustible surfaces would be like bricks or concrete.
Right, if you have a patio, like a concrete patio or
okay.
driveway.
What you don't want is you don't want to have something over the top of it, like a covered porch. A lot of people do it in their garage too, which
So the heat going up,
right.
Not a good idea.
get to that porch and hot enough that it actually could start that on fire as well. Absolutely.
Get up into the eaves of the house.
right, because heat does go up, right? Sure
What I've
enough.
heard.
So what about say they don't have a concrete patio or something like that? What about just clearing the dirt area and making sure it's down to bare dirt or maybe even on the rocks or something like
Right,
that?
as long as it's nice and level, so that
Okay.
you don't run the risk of knocking it over and make it another kind of disaster.
Yeah, because they get that oil spilled. In fact, when we did that, you could see the oil coming out over the top, and so like you're saying, you don't want to make sure you don't overfill it with the oil.
Right. Oh, and you don't want to get too big of a turkey either.
Okay, so
8 to 10 pounds. They said,
Okay.
like, really stay away from anything 12 pounds or over. So 12 pound might work, but 8 to 10 is kind of the best range.
so if you got a large family,
You may have to do a couple.
2 or 3,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Or if you like the turkey that much, right?
Right.
Okay, good. So what are some other things that we want to kind of be cautious of, watch out for, things like that? Any more suggestions or?
Well, you don't want to you want to make sure that your propane source isn't too close to the burner as well.
Okay.
Give a couple feet distance in between those two things.
And you may need to actually get a different hose than the one that actually comes with your deep fryer. You can find those at the same place that you would buy the deep fryer if you need a little bit longer than that 2-foot section that comes
Yeah,
with
because
it.
it only comes like what, maybe 2.5, 3 foot long,
Right.
if that.
So you may want a little bit longer of a braided propane cord for that.
So one of the other things too, you know, that having worked with propane, it's probably a good idea to have a spray bottle with soapy water. Check your connections, and you know, and that's a good way to see if, because propane, if it's leaking, you may or may not know it, and it could cause other issues. So check every connection at the tank, and so when you turn the propane on, spray it with some soapy water, and if it bubbles up, I think we got a problem, right?
For sure.
So, let's talk a little bit too about, kind of switch gears a little bit. A grease fire that's on a stove. Is it a good idea to throw water? What happens in that situation?
No, it's not a good idea. And in fact, we saw that today. What you're seeing when you see that frozen turkey, especially with a frozen turkey that's going down in that oil like that, the water that's frozen inside of that turkey is being submerged into that oil, and it's evaporating extremely fast, and it creates what we call a blevy, which is a boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. And what that is the water is trying to escape, and it's creating this explosive effect, boiling up out of that oil. The same thing will happen whatever capacity you're seeing that fire with. And so if you put more water on that, you're actually compounding your problem even more rather than
because the oil and water, they don't like each other, right?
No.
And so, and like you say, so because what happens to water when it gets overheated, it turns to steam, right?
Exactly.
And then,
that's
so
what we're
that
seeing.
expansion of the steam is what's creating that explosive nature, that violent explosion that you see, and it causes the oil to go all over the place, and there again, then you got the fire everywhere, which was pretty impressive on the, when we were doing that this morning. And so yeah. So what are some of the statistics that we might, that can help us out with some of this stuff? I understand you have some statistics.
I do. In the fire industry, we use the National Fire Protection Association. They're the ones that, as you know, kind of track everything that we deal with. And it was actually a lot higher than I expected when we were researching this. You're looking at, on average, about 5 deaths a year, 60 injuries, primarily from burns, as you would expect in what we saw today, grease burns especially, and $15 million plus in property damage every year,
Wow.
whether that's from the house or your belongings that were surrounding it, whatever it is. So it's pretty costly, and most importantly, we don't want to see anyone get hurt or killed from doing
Right.
this.
And even though that number, 5 deaths a year from a turkey fryer, that's one death is too many.
Right.
Absolutely.
So even though there's millions of people in the United States, it's still, it's unacceptable. That's kind of how we look at everything that we do in the
Right.
fire service. That, one life is always too many. So, and then $15 million in lost property. That's pretty hefty.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about, if this is happening to you, like you say, you don't want somebody getting injured or killed because of it, but it's just a better idea to be safe. It's a good way to cook a turkey. Very tasty. I haven't tried it myself yet. I might, but still, taking a look at all the precautions, making sure we do this safe.
And I think adding to that, keeping with that safety factor in mind, don't think that you're saving time by putting a frozen turkey inside of there. I think that's what a lot of people's mindset is when they do that is, well, I'll cook it and I'll thaw it at the same time. And we saw today that's just not going to work out well.
Right. And I think there's some health risks that are associated with that, which we're gonna bring in some health officials after, in just a few minutes, and we're gonna talk about kind of the health side of things. So, anything else before other kind of safety tips for the holidays coming up, whether it's fire related or even just.
Well, we always have the same ones at Christmas time, right? Don't let your tree get too dry.
Right.
Don't get it too early, all that kind of stuff. And then, always be conscious of candles, because we burn a ton of candles that smell like pumpkin and apple pie and all that great stuff. But we have to be careful about leaving them burning and where we're placing them, if we're getting them too close to curtains or something, because those things are, a lot of fires start there, in the kitchen or from candles, are really common places for fires to begin. So.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I remember one of the first fires when I first started my career as a firefighter. It was started by a candle, one of the taller glass enclosed candles that was placed on a shelf, but the top of the glass was only about 1.5 inches, 2 inches above the top of the candle glass, and they had forgotten to extinguish the candle before they all left for work and school. So middle of the day, that shelf right above it caught on fire and caught the house on fire. It was pretty, luckily we got a good save on it, but it's amazing how much one little tiny candle can cause so much damage.
It's pretty devastating around the holidays to have those kinds of things happen to you. You're expecting family and all that stuff, and now you've got a house fire. So no good.
And the other thing too is coming up is travel. You know, a lot of people are traveling and vehicles or airplanes, or just make sure you give yourself time, because we're also coming into the time of year when we might actually get some snow and ice on the roads. So, you know, just encourage everybody, take your time. You know, you don't want to be in such a rush that you end up having some kind of crash or tragic event occur before you even get to where you're going to enjoy family and friends and things like that, and maybe a good meal, right?
And take those things with you that you might need if potentially you do have slide off the road and can't get back on, and there's not a lot of people around. Have blankets, have water, have something to eat. Make sure that you're prepared for the worst.
Excellent. Good suggestion. Make sure your car is set to, because it's pretty easy to get stranded.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people have died just simply because they weren't prepared.
Right.
Well, we appreciate you being able to be on the show with us, and look forward to more things in the future. And any parting words before we go?
I just want to thank the Timber Mesa firefighters for helping us out today with our burn. That was actually kind of fun to have them out there, and appreciate those guys too.
And exactly, because now we needed to be able to do it safely,
Right.
because, you know, kind of hard to dress like we are to, you know, so having the guys out there with the truck and the turnouts and helping us do this, it was a lot of fun.
It was. Thanks for having us today.
Thank you guys. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to this edition of Safe and Sound, and with us right now we have Eli Bierman and Edwin Rodriguez, both epidemiologists with Navajo County Health Department. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kirk.
So we just got through talking with the firefighters, our training department, and talking about the kind of the don'ts, you know, working with a deep fat fryer and a turkey deep fat fryer, coming into the holiday season and things like this, and things that we want everybody to be cautious to make sure they're doing things safely, because it's an okay way to cook a turkey, but a lot of dangers that go along with it too. So, but now we want to kind of back up a little bit. How do we go about getting it so that we're health conscious and we're not getting poisoned or poisoning our families and friends like with this stuff? So let's kind of go from there.
Right, yeah, you make a very good point, Kirk. Deep frying turkey is a great way to enjoy a delicious meal with the family. But some of the things that we have to consider are to try and avoid foodborne illness, and that includes certain germs, certain bacteria, viruses, and other parasites that could make us sick. And the way we usually see that is that individuals will show up at their doctor with nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, a fever, any range of other symptoms as well, all the way out to more severe symptoms too. The illnesses can last anywhere from just a few hours to several days, or in some cases even several weeks, where individuals might undergo like a major weight loss. You know, and this isn't a good way to lose weight, even though some people might think so. Being sick is not a state that people want to be in.
Well, and it could even go to the extent of having to stay in a hospital for a while too, correct?
It could be a very expensive meal, that's right. Though very delicious, of course. But we do want to keep people away from the emergency rooms. We want to keep them away from things like severe diarrhea episodes, you know, which no one enjoys. I've yet to meet anyone who enjoys that. We interview dozens of people a month in regards to these illnesses, because the providers that they go to are required by Arizona law to report those illnesses to the health department. So we find out about them and we follow up with those cases. So we're looking at things like a proper thawing of people's meats, usually turkey. Now in America, the average turkey weighs about 15 pounds.
Okay.
I wasn't too sure what the turkey that was involved earlier.
It was actually a 15-pound turkey.
Oh, perfect! Right on the ball there. Okay.
And it was still frozen.
Great. So for a 15-pounder, you got Generally, you have 3 options of thawing it out, and it can be using the refrigerator at home. It can be using cold water in the sink, and you can also use a microwave, as you might already know and might already have some experience with. But for something like using the fridge for a 15-pound turkey, you want to go ahead and start that process 4 days before the cooking. It's going to be the slowest way to thaw it out. And then the second slowest way would be using the cold water, and that would be 30 minutes, allotting for 30 minutes for every one of those pounds. So that would be 8 hours total to thaw it out, and you want to make sure you change out the cold water, because after 30 minutes that water is not going to be sufficiently cold anymore. So you want to change that water out every 30 minutes and make sure that the turkey is completely separate in its own plastic wrapping or bag or whatnot.
So does it have to be completely immersed as well?
It does, yes. Because at any point, if you just have maybe just the top of the turkey that's exposed to the air, could be thawing out way too fast, and so bacteria growth could really go up in that area right there, and just that can make people sick.
So it sounds like so far still the best way is 4 days ahead of time in the fridge.
It really just depends on how fast you need it,
Right.
how fast you want to enjoy it, I guess, and what you have available.
I know, like
at
my
home.
sink at home, it's not really deep. So this particular turkey, it would have been sticking out the whole time. So then it would have been susceptible to all those germs and parasites and things that you're talking about, right?
That's right. And then there's the last option, the microwave, but most people don't really have a microwave big enough to support a whole turkey. But there are other things that we can do also to maintain our health in regards to foodborne illnesses. There's some prevention measures that Eli might want to speak on that.
Yeah, so the 4 most important measures are to clean, separate, cook, and chill. Cleaning, you want to wash any surfaces you're cooking on and make sure you wash your hands at least 20 seconds with soap and water.
And that's where you got to make sure to get in between the fingers
between
like
the
that,
fingers,
right?
under
That's
the
how
nails.
we teach the kids.
That's
Exactly.
right, yeah, they're the pros.
Sing the ABCs.
Exactly, those signs in bathrooms at restaurants to wash your hands shouldn't just be for employees.
Right.
And then separating, so what Edwin was saying about keeping the turkey wrapped or in a bag while thawing in cold water, you want to keep it separate from any foods. You want to keep raw meats or raw eggs separate from any ready-to-eat foods, such as that veggie platter that you're having for an appetizer.
So if you've had it on the counter and it's out of the plastic wrap and it's not cooked yet, move it to another spot. We got to make sure to
Goes
clean
right
that
back
up.
to cleaning. Just
Okay.
make sure that area is washed and
Good.
you can put any veggies there or whatever else.
Nice.
And then third is to make sure you cook the meat completely. That means cooking poultry and especially turkey to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And then beef and pork cooked to an internal temperature of at least 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So
I noticed in the kit that we used today, it had a thermometer. It was about that long, about a foot long maybe. So is it a good idea to check it multiple spots, make sure that
Definitely. Make sure that it's an even temperature throughout the turkey. Make sure there aren't any cold spots that may not have thawed completely and didn't cook to the proper temperature.
Excellent.
And then the last thing to keep in mind is to chill. So after you thaw your turkey, make sure you cook it, but any leftovers, make sure you refrigerate it soon after in a refrigerator that's at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
So it's a good idea to check your temperature on your fridge, making sure it's... Or is it okay to freeze these things as well?
Oh, if you freeze it, it'll stay good indefinitely as long as there wasn't any bacteria growing inside the turkey ahead of time.
So cool. It sounds like some pretty good tips and ideas on, and the biggest thing it sounds like to me is keeping clean. You know, so not only the turkey, the counters, but your own hands, and anybody that comes in contact with the cooking process, right?
Exactly.
That's right, and that's one thing we emphasize to people whenever they end up getting sick and we have to contact them to do an interview, a follow-up interview in some of these cases. And so we stress the importance of hand hygiene, to make sure they stay away from bodies of water, and to make sure that if they work in areas where they might be handling food, we would speak to their supervisor and make sure that they're not doing that directly themselves, right? So it is all about hygiene.
Awesome. So any other tips that you guys might have, even if it doesn't deal with the cooking, but or the holiday season per se, but just in general, things that you got?
So since we're talking about the holidays and the family, there are some populations that we have to consider that are more vulnerable to illnesses, in particular foodborne illnesses, and these are kids under 5. We have large outbreak groups that involve a lot of children under the age of 5, and in fact the majority of outbreaks around the nation involve this group of children. And then another group is individuals who are sick with compromised immune systems, so maybe individuals who are undergoing chemotherapy, people who are HIV positive, and then the last group are seniors, 65 and over. And for obvious reasons, their immune system might be a little weaker, and they're more susceptible to getting sicker. And not just that, they're also more susceptible to being severely more sick. So that's actually one of the populations that we speak to and do these interviews on very often. Mm-hmm.
So if we're looking at those different age groups and demographics, being very careful and cautious and making sure all your food is properly cooked. So when we're having those big parties, say like the church party or something like that, where you're going to have a bunch of kids that are under the age of 5, and the elderly population, you know, those that are over 60, 65, and like you said, those that are sick. So if you're feeling sick and not well, maybe it's a good idea to skip out on that party. Then it sounds like.
That's exactly correct, yeah. Right? You're just exposing other people to what you're sick with sometimes. Especially if you're hands-on, you're right there helping out with the preparation and the cooking of the meal.
So maybe at that point ask them, hey, you know, it's my turn to sit this one out. You guys bring me some food, right?
That's a great excuse to just sit it out and wait for it to come to you. That's great.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else as far as health-wise, you know, because we're kind of coming into that flu season. I know that we've been working with the county health department, that actually the Medical Reserve Corps, working on some flu shot clinics and things like that. So it's probably a really good idea if you have not gotten your flu shot to get that, right? You got any words of wisdom on the flu vaccine?
That's a good point, Kirk. We did see our busiest season in the flu last year. We had a total of over 1,000 reported cases just in our county alone. And we were really busy. Public health and the healthcare system was really pushed to its limits last year. The strains that hit last year were very effective, and we really wanted to emphasize the use of the vaccine because it did provide some coverage. So we're stressing the same thing for this season as well, so that people don't get sick.
Right. We never know exactly what's going to happen, but do the best we can to prepare and take advantage of those free flu shot clinics.
That's right.
Exactly.
So,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having Eli Bierman and Edwin Rodriguez here with us today and talking about, you know, how we can stay healthy and safe and enjoy the holidays. And for everybody out there that's watching this, make sure that you take the time, don't rush, enjoy the holidays, and keep yourself healthy. We don't want to overload the ER with sick people, and just have an enjoyable holiday season. We appreciate all that you guys do for us, and thank you for watching Safe and Sound, and we'll see you next month.